Good evening, and thanks for stopping by to Answers for the Paranormal for a kind of in-between night here, in between winter and spring on the east coast of the U.S. for a Sunday night, February the 24th, and we are Answers for the Paranormal. My name's Bill Posey. I'm your host for the broadcast, and checking in on the line with me from his office over in Horsham's, my co-host Joe Miroddi. Hey Joe, what's going on tonight, brother?
How you doing, brother? Yes, I am in my office in Horsham here, and my office is growing. I'm getting more shelves and more bookshelves and more areas to put my data on, and this has been a project for the last couple of years since my last, well, not my last daughter, but my middle daughter moved out, so I converted this into an office, and if I do a 360 here, it's all stuff that I've amassed over the years, Bill. It's crazy, but since 2010 we've been doing this, and here we are again tonight, and we had a little blip on the radar last Friday trying to produce this program, but thankfully, we're back on the air. You've got your technological problems worked out with your phone, and hopefully in the next couple hours we can finish what we started last week.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get through that without any other interruptions, so to speak. It was really strange when Joe and I were talking last Friday, and we were right in the middle of doing some of our icebreakers, and Joe was commenting, and I think you were going off on a tirade, Joe, about
no, not.
So all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, my computer starts shutting down. The Skype goes off, so I lose contact with Joe. Then my computer starts shutting down, and I'm like, what is going on here? And there's Windows doing an update right in the middle of our show. Never had anything like that happen before, Joe. I don't have automatic Windows update on my computer, but something decided that they didn't like what was going on, so hey, they took over the computer, and then trying to reboot it and get back up again was just futile, No matter what I did, it was just my computer just didn't want to cooperate. So it cut us off at 51 minutes. So friends, if you're tuning in tonight and you haven't heard those 51 minutes as a prelim to the show tonight, you might want to go back and listen to that and catch you up to speed on what we're going to get into a little bit further tonight.
Yeah, and for our listeners tonight, and those who are familiar with our personalities, they will be well aware of the fact that Bill is the very calm one and the very controlled and very organized individual, whereas me, as Bill said earlier, I go off on frequent tirades. I just can't seem to help myself. And so it was very strange, as Bill was describing to you guys what happened with the technology. Bill called me after everything shut down, and you were very, very upset, and you were very emotional, and you just couldn't believe what just happened. So
yeah,
it was very, very, very strange. So, it seems like, Bill, that we deal with different things, different obstacles, different hurdles that we have to jump over, and the enemy is always working to hinder the work of servants of Jesus Christ in any area that they desire to serve. So, we've kind of grown used to it, but that's not to say that at times it doesn't become very frustrating. So, but we're thankful that tonight we're back on the air, and hopefully prayerfully we can get through the rest of this program tonight.
Yeah, amen. And Joe, I'm looking down right now, and I keep looking to see if we hit a red level on my memory. And the thing's like, it's the lowest I've ever seen.
What does that mean, Bill, the red level?
Well, when because we use this platform to broadcast, it zaps up a lot of memory on the computer, and usually you'll have, I don't know, like mine's loaded with it's like 2 gigabyte of memory, so any one process won't kill the computer. So I'm when it does get to a danger level, it'll turn red down here on the board, and so I keep looking to see if it's going to go red, but so far it's been behaving itself, and only using up like 56 megabytes of memory. So I'm just like, wow, I guess the computer wants to work tonight.
So for a technological stooge like myself, Bill, that's a good thing.
So far, it's a good thing, yes.
All right. Okay. Well, I got that much out of it. So we want to do our usual update, Bill, on the chemtrails. We like to talk about chemtrails at the beginning of the show because they are a real thing. And I'd like to share a couple that I recently experienced within the last couple weeks.
Okay.
And one of them I shared with you. It was at dusk. Okay. I was out in front of my house and I looked up and I saw, let's see, maybe a trajectory going up of a chemtrail.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference was in this one, usually they're always puffy white. They take different shapes. Sometimes they're like knot shaped. Sometimes they're swirl shaped. But they're always white. But this one was different in that inside of the chemtrail was white, but on the bordering top and bottom, it was black. Yeah, it was definitely a chemtrail, and it was definitely different than anyone that I had ever seen before. Black on the outside and white on the inside.
Yeah.
The other one that I noticed one time, both of these were one time that I noticed. I was working at a customer's house, and I looked up, and it was so strange, Bill. There was a plane that was, again, the chemtrail planes, sometimes they go straight up on a vertical path.
Mm-hmm.
This one was going at a, let's see, that's 90 to, I don't know about the degrees, 45 degree angle. There were two planes. There was one plane that was out in front, and there was one plane that was trailing behind at a considerable distance. The second plane that was trailing behind was leaving the chemtrail, but was following in the flight path of the first plane that was not leaving a chemtrail. So I had to look 2 or 3 times to see, well, the first plane must be on a different path. But I looked and looked and looked, and they were on the same path. So there were 2 planes, one leaving a chemtrail, the lead plane not, but they were in the same flight path. So I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, that sounds a little similar to the one that I was telling you about, Joe. Because
go ahead, share that.
Yeah, there were 2 planes. Anytime, like I'll listen to what the weather forecast is going to be, and whenever they say, oh well, tonight's Sunday, so they'll say, well, Tuesday night you can expect showers, and I automatically know that means Monday and Tuesday the planes will be out spraying.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can almost set your watch to it. That's how they work. They're like clockwork. So, anyway, I was checking the weather, and there it was. You know, threat of rain. So I'm outside, and this was just last week. I forget what day it was, but anyway, I'm outside and I look up, and there's a plane that's. It's not really at a 45-degree angle, Joe. This one was more like closer to 90 degrees because it was almost going vertical.
Wow.
But it was going up, and it looked as though it was just a normal contrail. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But as it was dissipating, behind it was another plane going vertical as well, and it was leaving off its regular chemtrail. So, but it wasn't really that close. I mean, they were some distance apart, but yet the one I almost, like I was describing to you, it was almost like they were trying to mask what was going on. Like, oh, see, it's just a regular contrail. But yet, if you followed it far enough behind that, the one that looked like a regular contrail, if you followed back, you saw the second plane in the same path, and it was leaving, you know, a regular old puff, like you were describing. You know, it just fans out and becomes a cloud. But I don't remember ever seeing one like that before, where it looked like it was just a normal plane leaving its contrail, but yet behind it was one leaving chemtrail.
Well, I think that the fascinating thing about this, Bill, is that people have been accustomed to seeing what they see in the skies now, especially when you talk about younger people, you know, children and teenagers and people in their 20s. Nobody's noticing what's going on in the skies. And the problem with that is they don't have a context of what the skies used to look like. You and I do.
Right.
So when we look at these skies, we know that what is up there is not normal. It is not a condensation trail. And when we talk about planes that are flying, for those who say, oh, they're normal contrails, they're condensation trails, they're left behind by planes, well, then I would ask them that, okay, well, what normal planes fly vertically? Okay? What normal planes fly vertically? They don't.
Exactly.
They follow a flight path that goes across the sky. You can still look up at any given time, Bill, and see a normal plane leaving a normal condensation trail.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, tragically, I'm afraid, I don't know when people are going to wake up to the fact that they have been doused by something, or that a combination of things are going on, that they're trying to block the sun's rays, to reflect the sun's rays back up to prevent global warming or some nonsense like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid that it's just too late to really do anything about it, because, like I said a little while ago, that people are being conditioned to just look at these things as a new normal sky.
Yeah.
And no one notices it. And down the road, if there are still some people, reasonable people left on this earth in the media, they're going to look back and say, well, nobody really sounded the alarms back then when these things were first starting to happen. Well, yeah, there are a lot of people who are sounding these alarms, who want answers, who are not getting answers. And the chemtrail situation is a real thing that people are dismissing. And the problem, again, Bill, as with all other things that are going on in society, is that people who yell and scream and do a war dance about what they're seeing in the sky are labeled as conspiracy theorists.
Right.
If you go to Wikipedia and you Google and you type in chemtrails, the only thing that comes up is chemtrail conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're lumped in. You're labeled as someone who is on the lunatic fringe of society, who are seeing things that aren't really there. So, we look, we're going to keep doing these updates, and I don't think anything can really be done about it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to tell you, people that are listening, that you better start looking up. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe something can be done down the line. I hope so.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody listening to people like us will contact their representatives, and maybe their representatives will have the decency and the desire to do what is right. I don't know that that's true. I don't believe that that's true anymore. But I maintain a small portion of myself that's hopeful. Okay, I can't just dismiss that altogether. So as we continue to do these broadcasts, Bill, people might ask, well, why do you guys always start with the weather and this? And well, because strange things are happening, and I think that we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how weather is being manipulated. So,
yeah, I agree, Joe. I don't think we've even come close to touching on this and exposing all that's involved with it. I just bring up that a few days ago that you sent me an article regarding chemtrails, and the article stated that it's not a conspiracy theory anymore, because if you go to Congressional Bill House HR 2977, it was a bill originally introduced from Dennis Kucinich regarding space weaponry, and it was kind of farmed out to NASA, and but anyway, as part of it, they mention in this House bill the word chemtrails, that it's a real thing. And so people can, they can laugh all they want and try and make, as you say, Joe, label somebody a conspiracy theorist, and where's your tinfoil hat, and so on and so forth. But there's some real geoengineering going on out there, folks.
Yeah.
It's
and
it affects you, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, you might not realize it now, but down the road you're going to realize it. Mm-hmm. Physically, you're going to realize it, and it just that tells what you've just revealed, Bill, about this House bill and how it's not a look. You didn't have to tell you or I that it's not a conspiracy theory; that it's a real thing.
Right.
But the fact that it's being recognized by the House of Representatives. And that it's not being picked up by the mainstream media. I don't care whether you can, whatever channel you watch, I don't see anything on chemtrails on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox,
nope,
on One America Network News. It just shows you how the media is controlled.
Yep.
It is controlled.
Yeah, no question.
And I hope, and in ending this for tonight, Bill, I hope people enjoy Seattle weather, because we're going to experience a lot of Seattle weather, a lot of cloudy days like today. I took my dog for a walk this morning, Bill, and you know what? I tried to stay on the sidewalks, but even the sidewalks were waterlogged and puddle-filled.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't wait to get home.
I know.
So folks, get used to cloudy and rainy and damp and wet days, okay? Because there's a lot more of them coming.
Yep, no question, Joe.
So you have an icebreaker question for me, Bill.
Yeah, hey Joe, we're 24 minutes in and we've gotten to the icebreaker, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm already warmed up, but I'll take it.
All right, so yeah, Joe. On the last show, I said that I had two icebreakers because I couldn't decide which one I wanted to talk about. So you had asked me about what the difference was with the news today compared to when we grew up, and that's when everything went black.
We got shut down then. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, this is the second one I wanted to talk to you about. And now we're a few weeks past this, Joe, but I think it's still interesting. This was from back on February the 3rd, so this was the day after Super Bowl Sunday. But this article states, what's the deal with all the robots in this year's Super Bowl ads? And in the article, it goes on to talk about, the fear and loathing of artificial intelligence is being answered with a little reassurance. And that's what people were taking out of the Super Bowl ads, that they were trying to show these AIs as kind of normal. The one was a face of a kid. So they were trying to make it seem like, hey, this is the future, and the robots are going to be, they're going to come along and they're going to help us out, and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to read one part of this, Joe, and then I wanted to get your take on it. So this is the question that I have regarding this. But anyway, this is from a marketing consulting firm called Metaforce. Kind of a neat name, but anyway, they say that clients and agencies are chasing shiny new objects in an effort to look hip. And robots and artificial intelligence are the hot thing right now, observed Alan Adamson, co-founder and managing partner of Metaforce. Nothing is worse than a Super Bowl ad that no one notices or talks about. So putting something trendy in ads like robots help them stand out. He goes on, the writer of this article then comments and says, no doubts that robots are trendy now. They're also everywhere. Nearly a quarter of U.S. homes had voice-enabled devices as of the second quarter of last year, and consumers in those homes spend more than an hour a day interacting with them, according to Nielsen's. As of January, Google reported it has sold over, ready for this, Joe? 100 million Alexa devices. And since making her debut at SXSW in 2016, the humanoid robot Sophia has become a minor celebrity. So there you have it, Joe. 100 million devices with Alexa Sophia's voice on there. Joe, what is going on, and what do you think all this is getting to?
Well, you don't have to be a Harvard graduate or a Brown or a Yale graduate to understand that we've been conditioned by technology to depend on technology.
Mm-hmm.
There are companies that are completely devoted to coming out with new technology. You think of Apple, you think of Microsoft, all of the other tech companies that are out there. It's no longer we no longer live in a world where the paper is thrown, although it still happens to a degree, into the driveway. Mm-hmm. Or you go to your local establishment and pick up a newspaper, or you turn on the television and you watch Walter Cronkite or Harry Reasoner. We are now a society that has been conditioned to rely on technology for everything. Now, you mentioned Alexa. Now, Look at that, Bill. I just said Alexa. Isn't that funny? I have an Alexa Dot here. Because as I was preparing, I like to hear my favorite songs, and as I said her name, and she just perked up, and the blue light went on. So we're way past the point where the camel has his nose under the tent, as far as being watched and listened to. Not only are we offering ourselves over to technology, a result of that is also that we are able to be watched and listened to as a result of technology.
No question.
So, we could do a whole show on this, Bill. Actually, we could really do a whole show how it has affected the human mind and the interaction, the human element of interacting with other human beings. How technology has affected that. We're in a very precarious and dangerous time, Bill, where we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to power outages. We're vulnerable to technological terror, if you want to call it that, where grids across the United States could be shut down and people could be cut off from everything. We're all interdependent on technology, and nobody gets a check anymore. Everything is automatically deposited. You think of a bank account. You think of what banks are today, Bill. They're just manipulating digits here and there. There's no real assets anymore. It's just exactly like, right. I've got this many digits in this bank and that many digits in that bank.
Yep.
Well, where is it? And then you mentioned also the Super Bowl and these ads running through the Super Bowl. The other thing that I want to comment on is the fact that how this reveals, Bill, how sports has become a propaganda forum now. It's no longer what you and I remember, Bill, as a time of leisure when somebody would work a hard 9-to-5 day and come home and eat his dinner and kick off his shoes and go sit in front of a ball game. Now you are inundated with propaganda.
Yep.
You are, and they know that people they have. Well, that's another whole ball of wax to get into. How people have been herded into worshiping of sports individuals like LeBron James and even Colin Kaepernick. We know what happened with Colin Kaepernick. So sports has become a propaganda machine. It's no longer entertainment. It's no longer an area where we can go and relax and have fun with. It's what's pushed me completely away from sports almost. Technology, I guess in ending this, Bill, technology has invaded every aspect of our lives. There is not an area of our lives that has not been overwhelmed by technology. Nobody reads. Who reads books anymore? Some people do read books, but how many people read e-books? I just heard a report that advertisers are now the digital aspect as far as dollars and cents being spent on advertising digitally for the first time in history is outnumbering. They are outspending the traditional formats of newspapers and television and radio. Website-based advertising and everything else that, cell phones. Cell phones are small computers.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where this is all. I don't know. Hey, you asked me in ending, Bill, where is this all going?
Yeah.
Let me speculate where it's all going. It's all going towards unity. It's all going towards getting people to think along the same lines. It's all going towards dismissing those people who have dissenting points of view, who are being pushed further and further back away from the mainstream of thought. It's all about herding thought, Bill. It's all about shepherding people towards one way of thinking, and if you don't think in that one way, it's what the mainstream media is all about. If you don't think in that one way, then you must be filled with hate. You must be a conspiracy theory. You must be one of those fundamental Christians who actually believe the Bible. So it's all, in my opinion, Bill, it's all herding people towards one way of thinking, towards a universal system of things that the Bible predicts will happen in the end times, that will usher in the rule of the Antichrist, because you're going to have one language, one monetary system, one religious system, one economic system. It's all geared towards people being controlled. I can't think of a better way to end it. Technology today is geared by those in control to control the masses. It's what we're talking about tonight.
Let me add to what you just said, Joe. And by the way, folks, you're listening to Answers for the Paranormal, and our show tonight, From Shadows to Strings, The Manipulation of the Masses, Part 2. And so we're talking about artificial intelligence, robots, and the impact they're going to have. Joe just described something that I kind of figured he was going to get to, so I'm glad you got there, Joe, about where it's all going to. And you talked about control, right? So there's actually someone who agrees with you, Joe, by the name of Michael Priam. Now, this is in that same article that I referenced at the top here when we got into this question. And this is what the writer of the article says. The underlying issue, however, might not be that the robots are trendy so much as increasingly they're trendy for all the wrong reasons. I found that interesting that he would make that comment. So here's a quote that he has from a Michael Priam, the CEO of the ad tech firm Modern Impact. And Michael Priam says this: although automation is designed to help people prioritize and streamline their life, it does freak people out that they might lose control and that artificial intelligence will become a threat. And when I read that, Joe, I was like, wow. That is exactly what's going on here. It's all for control. Joe, I'd like you to do a little exercise tonight when we're done with our show. All right?
Sure.
I want you to ask your dot this question. Alexa, are you spying on us? And then let me know what the answer is, because she will give you an answer.
And we will give those findings on the next broadcast.
Yeah. And folks, if you're one of those 100 million who has a device, you're welcome to take that little exercise too.
Yeah, and like I said, Bill, I have you-know-who. I don't want it to go on again. I use it solely, completely, to put together song playlists, because for someone like me, music is ingrained in my soul, and music has a profound effect on me. So when I ask her to put together my favorite playlists, and I play them when I'm preparing for whatever. I could even be doing the dishes. It has an effect on me. So that's what I use who for.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't mean that other things are not going on.
Yeah.
So, look, that's a great question that you asked, Bill, and I would be very interested to hear what our listeners would have to add to that as an answer. And we always encourage people to get in touch with us through our website and our emails, and Bill will give you that information at the end of the program. So please feel free to comment. We actually beg you to do that on anything that we say, any issues that we bring up, whether you agree or disagree. It's fine. It really is fine. So just get in touch with us, and again, Bill will give you that information at the end of the program.
Okay. All right, Joe, you got you have some quick hit news tidbits that you want to touch on. So you want to get into those next?
Yeah, and what I'm doing right now is I'm doing my Johnny Carson. You remember Johnny Carson used to open up his program
Yeah.
with a not it wasn't a real golf club, but he used to just swing it to get the show going.
Yep.
That's what I just did for what it's worth. I think it's only for me. So I want to, huh? What's that?
I just did my Ed McMahon imitation.
What did he say?
Whenever Johnny would swing the club, he would go, "Ayo."
That's right. I forgot about that. Well, that's what's great about this show. You learn something every time we go in here. Even I do, you do. Hopefully, our listeners do. So here we go. I wanted just to let the listeners know what we're going to be doing tonight. Is there's some things that are going on in the news, some issues that we're going to talk about. Some of them we're going to try to be real quick with. I like to call them quick hit news tidbits. All right, so stuff that's going on that we'll bring about tonight, and we'll talk about a little bit tonight. Maybe further down the line, we'll expand on it, and then towards the end, we'll get to some more main news events, and we'll spend a little more time on those. So let me begin with something that is going on right now within the sports world that people might wonder why we are even talking about it. Well, hopefully by the time we're done talking about it, you'll understand why we're talking about it. So let me begin by asking you a quick question, Bill. Okay. Who are Bryce Harper and Manny Machado?
Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. They will be the two richest baseball players ever. Manny Machado recently signed with the San Diego Padres, and Bryce Harper is playing the role of the prostitute at the moment and trying to get the highest bidder. So it shall remain to be seen who he signs with. But yeah, these guys are going to be super rich, Joe. Well,
let me tell you something, Bill. One of the things that I value above anything else is honesty in our programs. I did not know that Manny Machado had signed with the San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Friday, I believe. Yeah, it was Friday because I was off on Saturday and I was sitting watching whatever that show is, Hot Stove or I think that's what they call it, and the guy was interviewing him with his new digs on his new San Diego Padre jersey. But
so he didn't leave the Sunshine State.
No, he didn't, Joe. It's as he explained it, it was a hard decision, but it was where he wanted to be.
That's heartwarming. That really is. Shame on me. Do you know the details of his contract?
I do.
What are they?
He's signed for the sum of $300 million.
Over how many years?
I believe 10 years. 10
Okay,
years,
so that's
$300 million.
$30 million a year. Okay, so then he would be. Before we even get to that, Bill, just for some context, let's have a little fun here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're very serious here on Answers for the Paranormal. This is serious. It really is serious, and you'll understand when we're done, hopefully. But just for some context here, hey, Bill, let's play a little game. I'm going to ask you some questions. Now, unfortunately, we don't have anybody else that can answer. You're going to have to be the one answering this, taking guesses.
So I don't have to buzz in or anything, right?
No, you don't have to buzz in. You just gotta answer it. This is from a website, saber.org/research/baseball major salary milestones. Bill, who was the first player in the history of baseball who made $10,000 a year? And it happened in 1913. Played for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, that would be. Hold on.
Mean guy.
Yeah, the old curmudgeon.
Yeah, his baseball card is probably worth more than anybody else's.
Spikes flying up.
That's him.
Yep.
TC.
Yeah, Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb. $10,000 a year. His previous year's salary was $9,000. That was a 33% increase.
Pretty good.
Who was the first $25,000 a year player, Bill, in 1921? Hint: he played for Detroit.
Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb. An increase of 25% from the previous year. Who was the first $50,000 a year player?
Give me the year.
1922 for the New York Yankees.
1922 Yankees.
Most famous baseball player of all time.
That would be George Herbert. I almost said George Herbert Walker Bush.
No, not him. He doesn't go back that far.
Yeah, George Herman Ruth.
George Herman Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
$50,000, an increase from the previous year of 160%. So you see, Bill, I'm giving the percentage change from the previous year for context, for understanding that they know how to use sports figures to get a message out. Babe Ruth sold a lot of beer, man. He sold a lot of tobacco back then.
Yeah.
1949, Bill, the first player ever to break six figures, $100,000 per year. 1949 for the New York Yankees. Was married to Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, that would be Mr. Coffee.
Joseph DiMaggio. An increase of the previous year, 54% increase. Now we move up to 1974, Bill. The first player to make $250,000 per year. He played for the Chicago White Sox. And he used to play for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Chicago White Sox, did you say?
Yes, and he was the MVP of the AL in 1974.
Ah, that would be Richard. Don't call me Dick, or Dick. Don't call me Richard Allen. Richie Allen. Exactly,
that would be him. An increase of the previous year of 25%. The first $500,000 a year player, Bill, 1977. He played for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh, 1977.
Considered the greatest third baseman of all time.
Would that be one Michael Jack Schmid?
That would be him. An increase, Bill. Listen to this. You sitting down?
Mm-hmm.
The previous year, I don't know what it was the previous year, but his $500,000 a year in 1977 salary was an increase of the previous year of 368%. Now, Bill, when you go to your employers and you say, if you did and said, sir, I want a 368% increase of my salary from the previous year,
mm-hmm. They would say,
I would be picking you up because you wouldn't have a ride home.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they would be telling me, don't let the door hit me where the sun don't shine.
That's exactly right, and it just goes to show, as I said, and please, people, listen to me. You cannot underestimate how celebrities are used to promote things, to promote agendas, whether they be sports figures, political figures, Hollywood figures, economic figures, artistic figures. Who was the first $1 million a year, Bill, in 1980? He played for the Houston Astros, and he threw a ball about 105 miles an hour.
Nolan Ryan.
Nolan Ryan, an increase of the previous year in Nolan Ryan's paycheck of 300%. I want that. Okay? The first $5 million a year player in 1992, he's probably the least memorable on this list, Bill. Played for the New York Mets.
Mm-hmm.
He used to played for the Pirates before that. Played in the outfield with Barry Bonds. 1992.
Oh, man. Did he play third base also?
No, well, he may have, not that I'm aware of. I think he was an outfielder. His initials are BB. Give up?
Yeah, I give up.
How about that Bobby Bonilla?
Bobby Bonilla. Yeah, he did play third base. That's who I was thinking of, but I forgot.
He did? Okay,
yeah.
All right. My bad. That's $5 million a year, an increase of the previous year of 154%. Now, I was just going to say, now we're getting into a ridiculous. All of these numbers are ridiculous in relation to people that actually work. Okay, $10 million a year. The first $10 million a year ball player, Bill, 1997, played for the Chicago White Sox. Was not known as a good guy, got in a lot of trouble. His last name is the same as the famous Liberty / underline in here in Philadelphia.
Oh,
Bell. Albert Bell.
Albert Bell. I was going
$10 million a year, an increase of the year previous of 75%. Now, Bill, we go up to $20 million a year. $20 million a year, okay, to play baseball. You swing a bat, and you throw a ball, and you catch a ball, and you get $20 million a year. 2001, Mr. Steroid for the Texas Rangers.
Alex Rodriguez.
All right, now, Bill. Now, I asked you if you were sitting down before. Now I need you laying on the floor.
Okay. I'm on the floor.
The previous year increase of Alex Rodriguez, $20 million from the previous year, 404%.
Gross.
2009, the same Alex Rodriguez would make $30 million a year for the New York Yankees. A paltry increase of 18%. Okay? Now, why am I bringing this up? Okay, because we're in an age, Bill, where you use the word grotesque. It is grotesque. The problem is that nobody's seeing it as grotesque. They know that we are ingrained in sports. We are ingrained in entertainment in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We are addicted to these sorts of things, and it's played itself out to where now you have people betting who are just run-of-the-mill people because it's all legal now.
Mm-hmm.
And the craze of the day is betting on everything under the sun. And when you bet on things, you probably should know a little bit about them before you bet on them, so that they know that people are addicted to sports. They've gotten them addicted to sports, and people have allowed them to allow themselves to become addicted to sports. Okay? Arizona Diamondbacks pitcher Zach Greinke, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to Manny Machado, well, if Machado, what you say about Machado is correct, then Greinke is still making more to him. Arizona Diamondbacks pitcher Zach Greinke makes $34 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Per week, you know what that is, Bill? Per week? Forget about, you know what? Taxes are taken out of that, so you can't... okay, taxes. Take my taxes and give me what they're given, okay? They can have those taxes if you give me this. Zach Greinke per week makes $653,846.15. I repeat, per week, a baseball pitcher who throws a baseball and tries to get people to swing and miss makes $653,846 per week. Or, how about per day, Bill? Per day. $93,406.59 per day. Or, how about per hour? Zach Greinke makes more per hour than many people do, who a lot of the Democratic presidential candidates today are mourning for the middle class because they can't make ends meet. Well, maybe they should take a look at somebody like Zach Greinke, who makes $11,675.82 per hour.
And on a 5-man rotation, Joe, what would that work out to?
5 times 11,000. You're paying. Well, the rest of them aren't going to get what he's making. So $50,000.
So he's only pitching one time a week.
He's only pitching one time a week. Now, what I've heard, Bryce Harper was, and his agent is Scott Boras, is looking for $400 million over 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's $40 million per year. Mm-hmm. That comes out to $769,230 per week. $109,890 per day, or $13,736.26 per hour. Now, why bring this up? Okay, why bring this up? Somebody might argue, well, they earn those salaries because they're the best at what they do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're the best at what they do. Okay, that's fine. My problem is this. You have ball players making $40 million a year, which means the owners of the professional teams those players are playing for are making how much per year? Are worth what? Mm-hmm. If they're paying Bryce Harper $40 million a year to play baseball, what are those owners worth? And yet, they're coming to your politicians and getting them to build stadiums for Bryce Harper and Manny Machado to play in. So remember, the next time you hear about the financial frontiers that these pro athletes are crashing through, you, Joe Slob, are building their houses of worship. You're building their stadiums. Are you okay with that? I've been beating this drum for years, Bill, for decades. It's not gotten any better. It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Not to mention the cost of goods and services, because the companies that pay the networks the commercial fees, what it costs, what is a Super Bowl commercial cost now for 60 seconds? millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those? Who are those costs passed on to? And it's not just the widget company that's actually having a commercial produced during the Super Bowl or during an NFL Sunday or during a baseball game. It's the other companies who produce the same things as the widgets, because the widgets are charging this for the widgets, so the companies that don't advertise are able to also raise their prices.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's how economy works, folks. And I just wonder how many are as enraged as I am every time I watch a football game, and I see the announcers show an illustration of the next stadium built in L.A. for the Chargers and the Rams, and how wonderful it is. It's the Coliseum of today.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you are paying for it as a taxpayer in California. Now, if you're not outraged at that, when these players are making this kind of money, don't tell me when you come out as politicians that you're mourning for the middle class, that they can't make ends meet, that they're working two jobs because they have to work two jobs. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about where you're spending the money, Kamala Harris, out there in California, who wants to be president, when you're okay with building a stadium for the L.A. Chargers and the L.A. Rams. Don't tell me, don't shed crocodile tears for the middle class. When you're going to build stadiums, palaces, playpens for these these billionaires to play in. I'm telling you, Bill, I'll never get over this. I'll never get over this.
Well, I'm gonna stoke your fire a little more, Joe. Ready for this? All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. And this is just because it's in our backyard that I know about this. But anyway, one Shibe Park, later Connie Mack Stadium, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Built in 1909. Okay. The first concrete and steel stadium. All right, 1909. And they housed two baseball teams, right?
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Athletics and the Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Athletics left town in 1954, was it? Somewhere around there.
I believe so, right around there, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that left the Philadelphia Phillies as the sole tenant, right? And they played there, Joe, until the 1969 season, right? The end of that season?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1909 to 1969. How many years?
60 years.
60 years. Okay. So, we're moving up, right, Joe? We wanted to get a new palace built in South Philadelphia. So they build one Veterans Stadium, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the year 1970. Okay? With the tax dollars that you just described. And they played in that stadium that housed the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a multi-purpose stadium, right, Joe?
Right.
The last game at Veterans Stadium was in 2004. It was the NFC Championship game, which our Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Remember that?
I remember it well.
Okay. So from 1970 to 2004 is how many years?
34 years.
34 years. So the first concrete and steel stadium lasted 60 years. But the brand new palace that they built in South Philadelphia could only last 34 years, and we needed two new stadiums, Joe, not one. We needed two new stadiums, so we had to build Lincoln Financial Field, and we had to build Citizens Bank Park. And what did we build them with?
Taxpayer dollars.
Okay. How many years do you think those two will last, Joe, before the next palaces are built?
Maybe not as long as Veterans Stadium, Bill.
Probably not.
They know the owners of these billionaire sports franchises, and I think that the Dallas Cowboys at last check were worth close to $600 billion.
Would it be?
So the owners of these sports franchises are well aware that there's no pushback, no pushback anymore. So look, it depends. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. Okay, they'll see what the stadiums are built with around the country, and if they don't think that Lincoln Financial Field is up to date, or Citizens Bank Park, where the Phillies play, is up to date, then you know what they'll go. Look, you build us a new stadium where we're going to move our franchises out of here.
Uh-huh.
You know, Bill, this is something that's gotten under my skin and caused me sleepless nights for years. Because there is no pushback. I bring this up to people who make money, who make good money, and I say, what do you think about that tax? Oh, don't worry about it, Joe. Stop worrying about stuff like that. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, you know what? There is nothing I can do about it, but I want people to be pissed off about it.
Yeah.
I want people to be pissed off about it because they have no right to take taxpayer dollars, which should be used for infrastructure only, roads, bridges, things of that nature, not sports stadiums, because we don't need sports stadiums as part of our infrastructure. If you can't afford to build your own damn stadiums, then get the hell out of whatever city you're in. But the problem is, Bill, is not enough people think like I do and like you do. I tried to bring some numbers to the table tonight to get people to start thinking about the fact that you go bust your rear end all day, and you know what? A guy throwing a baseball is making more in one day than you make in a year, or you make in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And his owner, the owner of the team that he plays for, is so rich that you can't even calculate it. If these ball players are making this kind of money, what are the owners worth? And they want us to build their stadiums. How did this even begin, Bill? Look, unfortunately, when Veterans Stadium was built in 1970, I was 10 years old. I had no clue. There should have been people that rose up and took to the streets. That taxpayer money was being used to build these new stadiums, these pleasure palaces. But there weren't. And unfortunately, the slippery slope of taxpayer money funding the lifestyles of the rich and famous continue to this day and continue to get worse. Now, I don't know what more you or I can say about it, but, you know, I don't know. Whoever's listening, next time you watch a football game and you see an illustration of the next stadium being built in Las Vegas, let's say, for the new Las Vegas NFL franchise, maybe you'll remember what we said. I don't know. I don't know what effect it'll have, Bill, but like we talked about with chemtrails, you really don't think that there's anything that's going to happen that's going to reverse the trend. But at the same time, you got to point it out because it is truth. It is reality that you are being hosed and you're not doing anything about it. You're not saying anything about it. And the people that you elect to be responsible with your tax dollars are not doing anything. There's no pushback at all. I don't know what else to say, Bill.
Yeah. Well, Joe, while you're on the subject of taxes, let's move on to your buddy and mine, one Reverend Al.
Oh, Al Sharpton, yeah. Well, everybody is probably now familiar with the story about the situation going on in Virginia with their governor, Ralph Northam, not to mention their lieutenant governor and their attorney general, I believe. scandals also going on with them. But with Ralph Northam, the big hue and cry has been for his dismissal, to call for his dismissal as governor as a result of a photograph that was mysteriously found somehow after all of these years of Ralph Northam in what is known as blackface, where you put this black ointment on your face to appear as a black person. Okay, so there have been calls for, and also he was standing. If this was him, first he said he admitted it, and then he said it wasn't him. My issue with Ralph Northam is his third trimester abortion position. I'm not even going to get into that, but he is one of the most depraved men that I've ever come across, based on what he has said with regards to the killing of a baby that is born alive. He's okay with killing that baby if it fits A or fits B. So the blackface thing for me is not even an issue. It happened back in 1984, I believe, and he was allegedly standing, well, in the picture, whoever it is standing next to somebody in a KKK a costume. Now, the KKK, everybody knows what they were about. Nobody supports that. So my issue is let's remove the blackface or the third trimester abortion thing from Ralph Northam and just limit it to this blackface issue. This is something that happened back in 1984. If he did it and he was a racist at that time, people change. I'm not the same person that I was back in the 1980s. Thankfully, I am not the same person. So it seems that everybody was calling for his dismissal based on this blackface picture. And boy, has there been, people, as soon as they heard that, if you remember the old Frankenstein movies, they grabbed the torch and they lighted the torch and they took to the streets and they were heading towards wherever the monster was. Well, the monster in this case, in their mind, is Ralph Northam because of his blackface. So Al Sharpton lit his torch and he was heading off to Virginia to fight again. So Al Sharpton wants Ralph Northam to step down for an incident that occurred back in the 1980s. Yet he himself continues to promote himself as a paragon of virtue. And the media does too. They don't highlight who Al Sharpton really is, even though he was one of the main characters of a sensational hoax back in 1987, the same decade that Ralph Northam had his, if it was him in that picture, his blackface incident. And I'm going to read a little bit about what the hoax that Al Sharpton was involved in. For those of you who don't remember, the Tawana Brawley rape allegations. Tawana Brawley is an African-American woman from Wappingers Falls, New York, who falsely accused 4 white men of raping her in 1987. Now, Tawana Brawley's claims in the case captured headlines across the country. Public rallies were held denouncing the incident. When civil rights activist Al Sharpton, along with attorneys Alton H. Maddox and C. Vernon Mason, began handling Brawley's publicity, the case quickly became highly controversial. Sharpton, Maddox, and Mason generated a national media sensation. The 3 said that officials... listen to this, Bill. This is Al Sharpton and his buddies Maddox and Mason. The 3 said that officials all the way up to the state government were trying to cover up defendants in the case because they were white. They further asserted that the Ku Klux Klan, the Irish Republican Army, and the Mafia were collaborating with the U.S. government in the alleged cover-up. So that's Mr. Al Sharpton. In case you folks out there weren't aware of, and I'm just bringing one thing, one issue, one incident out with Al Sharpton to remind you, when you see him presented as a legitimate voice of reason in the news, a civil, quote-unquote, civil rights activist. You know, it doesn't bother Al Sharpton, the Reverend Al Sharpton. It doesn't bother him that the Virginia governor is okay with killing babies that are born outside of the womb. What bothers him is that this Ralph Northam put on black makeup back in the 1980s. That's Reverend Al Sharpton for you. So the next time you want to give any credence, lend any credence to Al Sharpton, remember what type of person Al Sharpton is. He's a hustler, a race hustler who hasn't worked an honest day in his life. So that's what I want to say about Al Sharpton's involvement in the Virginia Ralph Northam blackface issue of today, which has kind of gone onto the back burner, Bill, but it's just one of those things that I'm sure is going to resurface because Northam has refused to step down, and it's going to be something that's going to bear watching as to where this goes from here. Yeah. Virginia is a state that has leaders that are under scrutiny right now. So my problem is that when you get people like Al Sharpton involved, who have a sordid past and are presented as voices of reason, are presented as legitimate individuals who are concerned about what's going on, forget about it. Yeah. Al Sharpton's a race hustler. He's a charlatan. That's what he is. Yeah. And nobody in the mainstream media will say that because they're not allowed to say it because they're controlled. We're not controlled, Bill. We'll say whatever we want. Yep. As long as it's based in truth, which is what I brought here with Al Sharpton and the Tawana Brawley case back in 1987.
Yeah. Well, Joe, Trump, I guess, was the one who coined the term fake news.
Yes.
But the case that you brought up, Al Sharpton's the poster boy for fake news.
Yeah, he's not only the poster boy for fake news, he's just a disingenuous individual, Bill, who has been living off of donations and living off of reputation from the civil rights movements back in the 60s when there were legitimate claims, legitimate demonstrations back then. Yep. He has lived off of that all of his life. And not only him, people like him. Jesse Jackson's the same thing. He's the same type of person.
All right, Joe, speaking of hoaxes, let's move on to David Hogg.
Yeah, David Hogg. People will remember David. He's been in the news recently. They will remember David Hogg as one of the students in the alleged Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Parkland, Florida mass killing, the high school mass killing in 2000, I believe it was 2018. Yeah, it was last year, where allegedly 17 students were killed by a lone gunman. So David Hogg is one of the alleged survivors of that alleged attack, and he has made himself into quite the celebrity. and an outspoken advocate for gun control, and an activist against a Second Amendment rights. Let me just read a little bit here about what Mr. Hogg has been up to recently. This is from, I don't even know why. This is from public radio, WLRN 91.3 FM, and I don't know where that is, but here is the article that I printed from that website. The family members of victims of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas massacre and shooting survivor David Hogg launched on Monday, that would have been February 11th of this year, an effort to get a constitutional amendment on the Florida ballot in 2020 that would ban the sale of assault weapons. The first batch of petitions kicked off a new campaign by the nonpartisan coalition called Do Something Florida. The Political Action Committee, Ban Assault Weapons Now, is organizing and paying for the event. It's time that we as Americans recognize that every type of gun violence, no matter how many victims there are, no matter if it's one person that's injured or 49 that are killed, it is a preventable issue and must be addressed in every zip code. Mm. And every weapon that is used must be addressed, Hogg said. For the initiative to be considered by the Florida Supreme Court, Do Something Florida needs to collect nearly 800,000 signed petitions from across the state. Bill, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. There was a call here, scam likely call. Goodbye, scam likely. All right, let me move on with this article. There is so much work to do and still to be done to get this common sense amendment on the ballots, said Gail Schwartz, chairwoman of Do Something Florida. It's time to ban the military-grade assault weapons in the state of Florida, Schwartz said. It will help to prevent the types of massacres that we've seen in our state, like Parkland and Orlando. And Hogg mentioned the 49. That was a reference to the Pulse nightclub hoax in, 2017, I believe. The homosexual nightclub down there in Florida.
Yeah.
Couple more paragraphs here. Over the next year, Americans for Gun Safety Now will support Do Something Florida efforts by educating Floridians on the critical need to ban assault weapons in our state to protect the ones we love, Milano said. Our bipartisan coalition is not trying to take anyone's guns or Second Amendment rights. So you say. Debbie Hickson, whose husband Chris Hickson died in the shooting, said she's hoping the initiative can get enough signatures to get on the ballot. I don't believe assault weapons should be in the hands of civilians, she said. I'm not trying to take guns away from anybody. Well, yes, you are. Except people who shouldn't have them. Oh, okay. Who decides that? Who is it? What is this? Debbie Hickson. Who decides that, Debbie? Who decides who should have those weapons? And note, Bill, that the propaganda, the brainwashing, the conditioning is to keep calling these weapons assault weapons. Assault weapons. As though they can't be used for defense as well. Okay? Mm-hmm. They're called assault weapons after Sandy Hook, after San Bernardino, after Orlando, Florida, and after this Parkland. They're called assault weapons. Well, you know what? They can also be and have been used as weapons of defense. So the problem here, Bill, with Mr. Hogg's assertion is that let's say you get assault weapons banned in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, if you want to get an AR-15, if you want to shoot up a school or a nightclub like they said happened in Parkland and Orlando, if Florida bans quote-unquote assault weapons, you can take a ride up to Georgia, you can go to Alabama or Mississippi, very close to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
or you can shoot up the coast, Bill, to South Carolina or North Carolina, and you can get weapons there. Okay? So let's say that Mr. Hogg goes to Washington, and he gets his assault weapons banned, right?
Yeah.
Well, then, anyone who wants to inflict mass damage can go underground and find any weapon of his or her choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same old argument, Bill. When any one of these alleged mass shootings takes place, we have to have, and here's one of the buzzwords, common sense laws enacted to prevent these sorts of tragedies again. You know, the politicians will get up there, the alleged victims will get up there. The Sandy Hookers have been doing that ever since 2012. We have to enact this law and that law. Well, they've never understood. Well, perhaps they do understand. I think they do understand that these things will go underground. If you want to ban those weapons, if you want to buy those weapons, if they're banned, you go on the black market. There's a black market for anything, Bill.
Yep.
How about this? And you know what? Close your ears, folks, if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say. All right? Just put your fingers in your ears. There's a black market for people who want to have sex with children. Now, is that legal? Is anybody screaming for laws against having sex with children? I'm talking about children a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4, 5, 6. Is anybody screaming for laws against to be enacted to prevent people from having sex with children? There's a black market, folks. If you don't believe me, then you haven't looked hard enough. There's a black market for people who want to have sex with children. So if there's a black market for that, and it's available, what makes you think that if people want to go and buy guns that are banned, won't be able to find guns that are banned? But apparently people like David Hogg and those with him in this Do Something Now Florida movement are dismissing that. They think they can end mass shootings simply with more laws and more bans. Well, people, do you really live in a fairy tale land? Does anybody remember Prohibition? The government was going to stop the intoxication of America with a ban on alcohol. Well, then speakeasies popped up. Go down to the corner and get a glass of whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stop prostitution. Make it illegal. Didn't stop Robert Kraft.
No.
Anybody who wants to engage with a hooker, a prostitute, go anywhere. They call them massage parlors. Let's make drugs illegal. Let's ban drugs. Let's stop drug abuse. You got more people on friggin' drugs these days, Bill, than I've ever known.
Yep.
So, folks, when are you going to learn that laws aren't the answer? So they're trying to get you to believe that we need to have confiscation. That's where this is heading, Bill.
Yes, it is.
At some point down the road, all the laws didn't work. I'm sorry, folks, we're going to have to come and get your guns systematically. We don't know how long it's going to take. We're going to have to go door to door. All right, people want to laugh at me for saying that. Go ahead and laugh. At some point, they're going to come and get your guns because they don't want any defense against their agendas.
Nope.
They don't want any pushback. As a matter of fact, they kind of like conflict. They kind of like destroying compounds like they did in Waco.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care who dies. So that's the update on Mr. Hogg and his entourage in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going next, brother?
I think we're going to 2020, Joe. Because
2020.
Yeah. Pretty soon it's going to be season for candidates.
Yeah. I was watching CNN this morning, Bill. We had planned to do this program tonight, and I didn't have this included in our program tonight. But watching CNN this morning, I witnessed something that was so astounding to me that I thought that it needed to be brought into the light of exposure tonight before it passed from my mind, if that's possible. So this morning I'm watching, I think he comes on at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings. I'm watching CNN political analyst John King in Iowa, because we're 344 days away from the Iowa caucuses, folks. John King is interviewing Kamala Harris. She's a California freshman senator,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a Democratic hopeful for the party nomination. And the interview is regarding the Robert Mueller report. For those who are not familiar with that, it's a report by the special counsel appointed by Rod Rosenstein, former assistant, refresh my memory, assistant, not attorney general, Rod Rosenstein, whatever he was back.
AG.
Attorney General, yeah. He was assistant to the Attorney General.
Right.
Mueller is appointed by him as special counsel, looking into whether there's any substantial evidence of collusion with Russia by then presidential candidate Donald Trump, or if there was any election tampering by Russia in the 2016 presidential elections. So John King says this to Kamala Harris, and these are his words. This is his question, verbatim, that I recorded and wrote down. Quote, John King to Kamala Harris. You know this from being a DA, from being an Attorney General. Sometimes you see it, you feel it, you smell it. You know somebody's guilty. You believe it in your bones, but you can't prove it. So you put that file away and you bite your tongue. Does Donald Trump, do all the people around Donald Trump deserve that same process? End quote. If I had the opportunity, I would like to ask John King, deserve that same process as opposed to what? Does Donald Trump and all those around him deserve that same process as opposed to what, John King of CNN? What are you suggesting be done in the event that Attorney General William Barr finds insufficient evidence of any wrongdoing in Robert Mueller's report, which I firmly believe will be the case? Donald Trump and those around him do not deserve due process, John King of CNN? You would choose to convict someone of a crime because, quote, you see it, you feel it, you smell it? That's what you're asking Kamala Harris? That, Bill, and those listening, is the very definition of a witch hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what Donald Trump has labeled this from the very beginning, and what I believe is going on. There's no evidence, but you want to stoke up the fires based on the feelings in your bones, John King, and those who agree with John King? What an absolutely disgraceful and reckless piece. CNN needs to stop presenting itself as a quote-unquote news outlet. It's a talk station, and not just CNN, MSNBC, and all the other stations like them. They're stations that lean so far to the left that those buildings are going to tip over. And that's fine. That's fine. Just don't pretend to be a network news source. Don't pretend to be a legitimate outlet of news. The days are over, because the days are over, Bill, when there were networks that would just broadcast the news of the day without spinning the viewer around to see things their way, because that's what CNN and MSNBC do on a daily basis. So I just was very disturbed by that piece that aired on CNN this morning, because John King seemed to suggest that something should be done, even if William Barr finds that there are no issues to be addressed as far as legality in anything involving the 2016 elections or anything involving Russia. He wants to go on feelings and gut feelings. What is he promoting here? What kind of a legal system would that be if prosecutors just went on, if juries and judges, Bill, were handed cases and the judge, let's say the judge charged the jury, you know what? Don't worry about the evidence. If you feel something in your bones, if you feel something in your heart, if you see something that doesn't look right, if it smells bad, you should come back and convict this defendant. I mean, that's what John King was suggesting.
Yeah.
And this guy is apparently a respected CNN political analyst. Now, is it any wonder that Donald Trump comes out against CNN all the time?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worse than fake news, Bill. I think it's worse than fake news. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They have an agenda, and they're seeing it through to the end. It's worse than fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk now. Unless you have something to add to that, Bill, I'm going to move on, and we'll talk about a little bit about what's going on with the Democratic field of candidates as it's currently comprised.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie Sanders announced his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination. And I was listening to NPR when he announced that he was going to be running again. But here's the thing, Bill. And this is what calls for scrutiny. This is where you have to listen to what people say, and you have to scrutinize what they say. First of all, you have to be accurate in what they say, and you have to scrutinize what they say. Because if not, you're going to be thrown off the tracks right away. NPR, in talking about Bernie Sanders' candidacy, now this is literal, they said that he has a problem. You know what his problem is, Bill?
What's that?
His problem is that he's old, he's male, and he's white.
Yeah.
He has a problem because he's old, he's male, and he's white. This narrative has also been carried along by CNN. And as a matter of fact, though, on the same CNN show this morning with John King, along with three other pundits, talked about the need for, quote unquote, fresh blood and a new face as far as who they want to have face Donald Trump in the 2020 elections. So what can I gather from this? So it seems that they are suggesting, Bill, that Democratic voters are bigoted, sexist, and that they discriminate against the elderly. Democrats don't want someone like Bernie Sanders' age. I think Bernie Sanders is what, 78?
Yeah,
77?
something like that.
He's too old. Younger, I guess, is better. Someone like a Pete Buttigieg, he's the mayor of South Bend. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Buttigeig. I know he's young, and he's a homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe an Amy Klobuchar, senator from Massachusetts. Minnesota. Now, they don't want a male, so maybe they would prefer an Elizabeth Warren or Kirsten Gillibrand. And they don't want someone who is white. Then how about maybe a Cory Booker, a Julian Castro, or a Kamala Harris? So what I gather from this, Bill, is that it seems that the Democrats have placed a warped emphasis on age, color, and sex of who they want to go up against Donald Trump in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really listen to what these candidates are saying. And by the way, what are they saying? I've listened. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're offering. Maybe it's because all they can think about is beating Donald Trump. Forget about how good the economy is. Forget about how good the housing market is, how good the job market is. Forget about how good the stock market is. We have got to get that racist, misogynist Twitterer out of the White House.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bill, let's cut to the chase. Joe Biden is leading in the polls by a big margin.
Mm.
And, Bill, he has yet to declare. He's watching the field of 64. I think that's what it's become, a field of 64, like the NCAA tournament. It's the Democratic tournament. The field of 64 Democrats bump and bang their heads all over the country. Joe Biden knows he will be the Democratic presidential nominee. So what he's essentially doing, Bill, I believe, is skipping spring training workouts. Because Joe Biden is 76, 77.
Mm.
But when 2020 rolls around, I believe that he will be the guy in the batter's box. None of those who have declared or are considering a run for the Democratic nomination have the slightest shot, Bill, at beating Joe Biden, let alone beating Donald Trump in 2020. So for all of the people that are running in the Democratic field, what this is, it's a matter of getting your name out for whatever future political aspirations you might have. And Bill, let me go through the list of candidates real quickly, okay, as quickly as I possibly can.
Okay.
Elizabeth Warren, these are Democratic presidential candidates. Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts. Cory Booker, U.S. Senator from New Jersey. As I said earlier, Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Julian Castro, former U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and San Antonio mayor. Tulsi Gabbard, U.S. Representative from Hawaii. Kirsten Gillibrand, U.S. Senator from New York. Kamala Harris, U.S. Senator from California. Amy Klobuchar, U.S. Senator from Minnesota. Bernie Sanders, U.S. Senator from Vermont. Marianne Williamson, an author and lecturer. Andrew Yang, an entrepreneur and author from New York. And what I could not believe, Bill, or what I was completely unaware of, and this is from a very interesting website that I became aware of this morning, Ballotpedia.com. They have a running account, a watch on the candidates that are declaring, who have declared, who are dropping out, anything to do with presidential candidates in either party, or third parties or fourth parties. Here's what, as of February 18th, 2019, Bill, I want you to take a guess how many candidates, combination, filed to run. Take a guess.
100.
537 candidates filed to run.
What?
Including 184 Democratic candidates, 69 Republican candidates, 19 Libertarian candidates, and 14 Green candidates. I have a list right here of all of them. If you don't believe me, folks, go to ballotpedia.org and check for yourself. It has a list of everybody who has either declared or has formed an exploratory committee, but these people have filed, at the very least, to run for the 2020 presidential election. So, those are my current thoughts on what's going on in the world of the Democratic hopefuls for running to lose to Donald Trump in 2020. And let me add this, Bill. Let me add this. As bleak a picture, as sordid a picture as networks like CNN and MSNBC have painted of Donald Trump, as evil as they have portrayed him to be, if he runs, he should get slaughtered in 2020. Because anyone that evil, that vicious, that hateful, that misogynist, that racist, shouldn't have a shot in the dark in 2020. So as they are portraying him in the mainstream media, on CNN and MSNBC, Donald Trump should not have a shot in the dark in 2020. So let's see, on November 7th of 2020, Bill, let's see how effective CNN propaganda is, MSNBC propaganda is. Because he shouldn't have a chance. He shouldn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. But my opinion, at this point, any one of these, I don't care if it's Joe Biden, it can be Joe Biden. Donald Trump is going to be a two-term president. Mm-hmm. What do you believe, Bill?
I'm in full agreement with you, Joe. Whatever that field is that the left puts out there as we get into the presidential primaries and all, none of them have the message that'll resonate with the American people. None of them. Because the only thing they have, Joe, is that Trump's a bigot, Trump's a liar, Trump cheated, and everything else that they have to say about him. That's all they have.
That's right.
They have no platform. They have no. They have nothing positive to bring to the table. So I agree, Joe. It'll be a slaughter in 2020.
Well, and I'm wondering, when that does happen, how it will be responded to, what the response will be from those networks. I keep mentioning CNN and MSNBC because they are the two that are most anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, as I said earlier, if they're anti-Trump, then they're anti-economy, they're anti-jobs, they're anti-housing, they're anti-stock market, because all of those have been as healthy as they have been in my as far as my memory goes back.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this for a fact because I'm a contractor, and I depend on the economy. Because if people don't have money to spend, they don't have money to spend to hire a contractor like me to go do work in their homes.
Right.
So, this is something over the next 344 days before until the Iowa caucuses, how this Democratic field will thin. And they actually have those who, on Ballotpedia, for what it's worth, they actually have Donald Trump could be threatened by this person or that person. Look, Donald Trump declared his candidacy on the day of his inauguration in 2017. Mm-hmm. So anybody that wants to challenge him in the Republic, you know what? If you enjoy wasting your time, be my guest. Be my guest. None of the people mentioned here have any shot to beat Donald Trump as far as gaining the Republican nomination for 2020 for president. But on the other side, it's going to be bordering on comical to watch them run around the country and try to make their case that they have a chance to beat Donald Trump. When it comes down to it, people are going to look at what really matters, the economy and the health of the United States. Regardless of what they think of Donald Trump, you're going to have people who are going to vote in secret, that they don't want their family members to know they're voting for Donald Trump because of the narrative out there that he's this and he's that. But when 2020 rolls around, it'll be a bigger defeat margin than it was in 2016. So these are the things that are going on these days, Bill, and I don't think we have time to get into the rest of our program. We're going to have to move on to a part 3, and I'll let you know. I'll have you share with our listeners when that might be.
Okay. All right, so as we come to the end of From Shadows to Strings and Manipulation of the Masses Part 2, we'll be in production for Part 3. Joe, why don't we set that tentatively for this Friday?
That sounds great to me.
And see where we are, okay?
Absolutely.
So, folks, look us up on Facebook, our Answers for the Paranormal page, our website, www.answersfortheparanormal.org. We'll do an update on there. So we'll plan on Friday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we hope to see you then.
What we're going to talk about, Bill, that we didn't have a chance to get to tonight, is we're going to talk about the fallout from the Jussie Smollett hoax. Okay, there's a bigger picture going on here, in my opinion, and I'm going to share that with individuals who listen to us on Friday night. I'm going to get into the specifics of what allegedly happened, how it could not have happened, and then who really is in control of all of this. There's a bigger picture at hand, and also we're going to get into how that all relates to what is going on with the atmosphere, the narrative of hate in this country, what hate actually is, and how it's being used and manipulated by the people, by those in control, to control the masses, to control thought, to get you to think along the lines of the way that they think. And then we're also going to get into the case which ties into all of this of the lieutenant from the Coast Guard, Christopher Paul Hassan, who allegedly had amassed all of these weapons and a hit list of people that he was going to kill. This has broken over the last couple of weeks and has kind of toggled back and forth between that and the Smollett case. So we're going to get into the Hassan case and how that also ties into what is going on with the propaganda machine that is out there that is controlling all of these things. It's just fascinating. It's hard to keep up with, Bill. It really is, and it's hard to get to all of the material. So we get to what we think is the most pressing need of the day or the week or the month. So we look forward to coming back this Friday, which would be February the 20. Or no, was that March 1st or February 22nd?
No, that would be March 1st.
March 1st. Mm-hmm. March 1st. I have a calendar right here. Yeah, March 1st. Okay. So, folks, see you on hopefully this Friday, March 1st. And we're going to get into some more fascinating discussion. And again, anything you heard tonight that you would like to comment on, whether pro or con, please get in touch with us and let us know what you're thinking about all of these things. And Bill will give you our contact information.
Yeah, you can make contact with us at our email addresses, joe@answersfortheparanormal.org or william@answersfortheparanormal.org. Shoot us off an email. Joe and I are in discussion with one another during the week, so if either one of us receive your comment or your question, we'll make sure that the other has that information as well, and we'll get back in touch with you. So hopefully you'll do that. Again, those email addresses: joe@answersfortheparanormal.org or william@answersfortheparanormal.org. Check us out on Facebook, Answers for the Paranormal. We're also on YouTube at Answers for the Paranormal. And our website, again, is www.answersfortheparanormal.org. And with that, for Joe, this is Bill. And we hope to catch you again here at Answers for the Paranormal on Friday, March the 1st. So, Brother Joe, hope you have a good night, and thanks so much for setting up the conversation tonight. It was really well thought out, and we covered some areas that probably not too many others have commented on. So look forward to next Friday as well.
It's always a pleasure, Bill, and always looking forward to it.
All right. So, folks, again, thanks for tuning in tonight, and we'll catch you next time on Answers for the Paranormal. Good night, Joe.
Good night, brother.